Same thing for congregational dhikr. Dhikr in congregation is makruh. Congregational dua is also considered to be makruh in the Maliki school. And so Mauritanians would be, some of them, Mauritanians, like those in the village of Shaykh Abdullah Ali's village, they probably be very rigid, and they won't say, no, we're not doing that. Because this is what the madhab says. But others say, well, no, we loose up a little bit, and we're not going to be, because of certain explanations which are there. So, sorry.
Right. I've always been interested with the school of Maliki's claim that they follow the sunnah of the Medinan people. And that seems to me a really reasonable claim why that kind of sunnah would be the closest to what the Prophet did. My answer is, why would Imam Shafi or Imam Hanafi or the rest of the Imams differ on that point? Do they differ on that point specifically, or is it another issue of methodology or something like that?
No, that is mainly where they break with Imam Malik with regard to the arguments that the actions of what people do can be considered to be authoritative, especially something that is binding for others to follow. And Imam Shafi'i's arguments and other Shafi'i's arguments against the upholding the method of the people of Medina was a bit disingenuous and actually intentionally distorting the argument of Imam Malik. Realistically, there was a lot of tolerance during this early period, but also there was a certain amount of fanaticism that people were inclined towards during the period. Also, where schools, in their attempts to justify their own legitimacy, they would slight and develop certain polemics against other schools and misrepresenting their arguments. So they would say, well, how can you claim that what people do has any authority? But it wasn't like Imam Malik was saying the people, the general masses in the city, and what they do is proof. Imam Malik was talking about the scholars. These are the learning community. These are people of taqwa. These are people of knowledge. And if they're doing it, and all of them are doing it, all of them are saying it, come on, man, there had to be something. There has to be something there. And so that was the argument. It's just that other schools, in particular, I found that some of the Shafi'i arguments have been to make it appear as if it was something a bit more than that. And it's similar to Imam Shafi'i's argument against Abu Hanifa in accepting what's called istihsan. And Imam Shafi'i objected to istihsan into Abu Hanifa's adoption of it in very harsh terms, implying that Imam Abu Hanifa was doing something haram, that he was actually committing sin and doing so. And so it's famous that Imam Shafi'i said in his Risala that ليس للمجتهد أن يشرع ومن استحسن فقد شرع, that it is a mujtahid has no right to legislate, and whoever uses istihsan, does istihsan, that person has legislated. So he is a very strong rebuke of Imam Abu Hanifa on the part of Imam Shafi'i, when in fact Imam Abu Hanifa wasn't saying that istihsan is just okay. I think it's good. Let's do this. It wasn't like just a whimsical type of judgment that I like this particular opinion and I incline towards it, so let's do it. No, it was a deliberative type of principle, that in a reflective principle where you take into account if there is there an interest involved that would demand from us or warrant that we depart from what's called al-qiyas al-jari, the apparent or the apparent qiyas, and take the more subtle analogy and depart from that. So it's a bit more deliberative and reflective in the view of Imam Abu Hanifa. So there are a lot of misrepresentations of that.
But were there any kind of other than the exaggerated representation, were there kind of reasonable objections to what I see as Imam Malik's more experiential kind of by seeing directly what the people in Medina was doing? Because my impression is the later Imams, they were much more formalistic in the sense they were dealing with text rather, I mean, they dealt with people too, but they really put heavy emphasis on the hadith itself, on the formal form of the hadith, which is the isnad and the text, rather than the experience of seeing people who interact with the Prophet for generations.
Yeah. So I mean, well, a valid argument that can be made against the method of the scholars of Medina is that there's no way to ascertain that it's correct. You see, I mean, it's an argument, and it makes sense, but is my point proven beyond a reasonable doubt? No. So just simply on that basis, Imam Shafi'i said, well, bye-bye, Imam Malik, I'm going to start my own school. and it gets pretty much that's what happened. Imam Shafi'i started his own school and had his own principles, and he wrote his Risala, and then he got credit for being the first person to write about Usul al-Fiqh and the science of Hadith. So, and then he had his old school opinions and he had his new school, so when he was in Damascus and then he was in Egypt. So Imam Shafi'i would go on to do that. And Imam Shafi'i's intention was actually to try to unite the schools. His intention wasn't to actually invent a new school. His whole thing was like trying to reconcile between Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik, their opinions. He studied with Imam Shaybani. And so he tried to create sort of a hybrid and hope that people would just come over to his school. But it turns out people are like, I like your stuff, but you know what? We still like this over here too. So then there was 3 schools after that. Yeah.
The issue of the whole reading hybrid and reconciling, but in a way, wasn't Imam Shafi'i's position not somewhere between Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik, but actually further from both?
Right, exactly, yeah.
Wasn't Imam Abu Hanifa's position, especially when the issues of accepting a hadith mursal and the idea of looking at the amal of, let's say, the Sahaba over their narrations, kind of closer to the idea of Imam Malik.
Yeah, definitely. Right, exactly.
At least the outcome.
Right, exactly. Yes, but I think what it is that the Hanafis were a bit more rational, in their approach, and then Imam Malik was. Imam Malik was very textual. He had text, but he also used reason too. And he had a lot of textual evidence to back it up. Whereas a lot of the Fatawa Imam Abu Hanifa, there was no text, really available for people to really see to back it up. With Imam Shafi'i, he thought that that there was something that was the flaw in Imam Malik's approach was in him relying upon the actions of people and what people do. And so Imam Shafi'i started to argue that nothing can be placed over the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. That if there's no hadith to support it, then you take recourse to qiyas. Yes, you can do that. But if a hadith exists, then not even the actions of the people in the city can be stronger than that. And so, just like the popular view that we find amongst the what I call the neo-Hanbalites today, is that a hadith can only be acceptable unless it's sahih, and that comes from Imam Shafi'i. That's Imam Shafi'i who introduced this idea when the scholars before him had a different understanding. Imam Abu Hanifa didn't say that, or let's say Imam Abu Hanifa's conditions for sahih was not the same as Imam Shafi'i taught them. Imam Shafi'i was talking about isnad, connected chain from beginning to end, and all of the narrators reliable, and so that is sahih. Imam Abu Hanifa said, "In sahih al-hadith huwa madhhabi." If the hadith is sahih, it's my madhhab. But what did he mean by being sahih? If a hadith contradicted with what we call, or hadith had a connected chain, but the teaching of the hadith is a universal or a type of teaching that needs to be universally understood or known by people. Ma ta'ammu bihi balwa. So there's a contradiction between what we call ma ta'ammu bihi balwa and the hadith. So the hadith that says whoever touches his penis and make wudu, that hadith. So only a couple of Sahaba related to hadith, and Abu Hanifa's opinion was like, well, that is something that all of the Sahaba should have known that. That is something that every man needs to know. But if we only got 2 people reporting it, that's not sahih, it's weak.